My name is Eric Lowe, and on behalf of Marymount University, I'd like to welcome our panelists, members of the community, our faculty, staff, and students to the first Leadership Excellence in Leadership Seminar for 2014. Like I said, my name is Eric Lowe, and I am a graduate admission counselor for the graduate program here. And this is part of our course, the Leadership Seminar course, taught by Professor Stephanie Day and Dr. Ferdinand Schauer. And we have many of our students here, or should be here, if I'm saying them correctly. And just a little bit about our program. We have three of them: the Community Psychology program, the Leadership and Global Development, and the MBA. And each of them shares a core in leadership, because we believe that whether you are part of a program evaluation endeavor, or if you are involved in community leadership, or if you're in a business environment, that is something that is going to determine the success of whatever it is you want. So thank you for coming. We will also, on the 4th of December, have an event that is specific to our graduate programs, and I'd like to invite you all to attend that. We will have our chair of our business program there, as well as answer any questions you may have about that. Without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Michael Brophy, who is going to introduce our panelists. Thank you.
Welcome back. I see some familiar faces, and welcome for those folks who are here for the first time. Very grateful to a number of people. We're going to hear about our speakers in just a minute, but want to recognize our Arts and Media program, led under our faculty member Noah. Thank you for coming out to take the program. We recognize Holly Neighbor, who helped put the program together. Thank you, Holly. Are really important to us in terms of advising us on leadership and business. We have at least one board member, Dr. Sue Solbach, if you can stand. With psychology professor, right? We also have a member of the Long Range Planning Advisory Council, Mr. Mitch Harness. Mitch? Former alum of this program. We used to put the speakers in the chapel to keep them honest, right? And for this, that's where he's going, right? And then, of course, we have another member of the Long Range Planning Advisory Council from the LA Chamber of Commerce, and Mr. Lee Lee. Mr. Lee Lee. Okay, I want to also recognize, you will not like this, but I'd like to have the students who are in Professor Folletta and my freshman seminar class to please stand. Professor Folletta, they did pretty good, right?
Wow.
They're working their way through a big leadership case study, aren't they? What do you think?
I think they're prepared.
They're prepared, so I will hopefully help. And of course, we'll make sure we ask the graduate students in our MBA, Leadership and Psychology programs, please stand. Really grateful to host this program, and I asked the students to stand last, not because they are last, but because this program really comes from a need we saw 3 or 4 years ago as we built the undergraduate programs in business and leadership and psychology, and then as we built the graduate program as well. We wanted to make sure that students worked closely with their faculty, and they had great mentors, and they worked closely together on field research. But we wanted to bring in 2 or 3 times a semester some excellent leaders from across Los Angeles. So that's what we have tonight. The program is very straightforward. By 7:30 we'll be having tea and cupcakes. Okay, so that's where we're headed. Along the way, what we'll do is we'll have some time with each of the speakers in a more formal question and answer setting. Then at some point during the program, I think Holly will distribute note cards, and so if there are students or faculty or staff or community members who want to ask questions in particular, you can write them down, and then Holly will get them to you. Make sense? So we'll hopefully be able to hear from the speakers who prepared just a little bit, some thoughts, but I assure you it'll be very free-flowing. I want to make sure we have time for your questions. What I'll do is I'm going to stand behind each speaker just so you know who they are as they're introduced. I'd like to introduce first Geiselman. And many of you know his company. Grover is the CEO of Living Spaces. Many of you may know this company. CEO of Living Spaces, a home furnishings retailer based in SoCal. Attended the University of Texas, Austin, nice town, where he received a BBA degree in finance. Worked for Lehman Brothers Investment Banking Division, then First Reserve Corporation, an energy-focused private equity firm, before attending Stanford's Graduate School of Business, where he earned an MBA in 2002. After an internship with Gallery Furniture in Houston, Geiselman co-founded Living Spaces in Rancho Cucamonga, where he first opened the company in 2003. Many of you probably know now he has many locations located in SoCal and Arizona. Grover and I are both part of a fraternity together, or maybe it's a sorority, a club. We're both members of the International Young Presidents Organization, and that's where we had the good fortune to meet. Please welcome Grover to campus. Paola Santana came to Marymount through a connection through our Long-Range Planning Advisory Council, Mr. Lee Liggins. And Paola was here last spring for our first annual Latino Leadership Summit, which was a great success. And we're so glad that Paola was close to us as we planned for this. Paola leads the Chamber's college access and success efforts. She's also developed business education partnerships, interpreted complex policy issues, and helped to improve educational opportunities while working with the Los Angeles Unified School District Board of Education. Paola earned her bachelor's degree in political science at UC Berkeley and is an alumna of the Harvard School of Education, where she earned a master's degree in higher education. And she's also a proud graduate of the renowned Reardon Leadership Institute. Please welcome Paola to campus. Is Mr. Liggins your boss? He's not your boss. Okay, so we can go easy on you tonight. Unofficial. We met. Eric Berkley has the pressure tonight of having his family here, especially his little brother, who happens to be a student here at MCU. I want to welcome the family. Eric is the Vice President for Berkley International Packaging. I assume where he works with his dad. And they have a plant in Carson, so they had a quick drive over tonight. Eric went to the University of Denver, saw a huge opportunity upon graduation, using his passion for sustainability and eco-friendly business practices to help companies save money and protect the environment at the same time. His passion for packaging, however, was passed in from his dad, who has spent more than 35 years in the industry. Eric holds a BSBA from the University of Denver and was formerly the president of the university's Lambda Chi Alpha chapter. Outside of the office, you have time outside of the office? Sometimes. He likes golf and enjoys non-business travel with friends and family. Please welcome part of our family, by extension, Eric. Also a member of our family, and certainly by extension, is Kadar Lewis. Kadar, many of you may have seen before on campus. Kadar is part of that outstanding group in Los Angeles called the Fulfillment Fund. And many of you know we work very closely with that fund every year to bring some of Los Angeles' best high school students to us. Kadar, you were here last March for the first time? For your first visit? It was a wow, right? It was awesome. Kadar joined the Fulfillment Fund just about a year ago, and he plays a key role in the organization's internal staff development, new partnership creation, and program development. Also plays, I know, a very active role in fundraising, external affairs, and managing relationships in Los Angeles. Most recently completed the nearly 4-year tenure with the Magic Johnson Foundation as director of the foundation's Taylor Michaels Scholarship Program. Kadar earned his bachelor's degree in philosophy from Harvard and his master's degree from Cal State, Los Angeles. And he is a student also, is that right? Kadar is also a student at the doctoral program in educational leadership now at Loyola Marymount University. Please welcome Kadar. And many of you may know the Major General. Major General Peter Gravett is a good friend of the campus, serves our long-range planning advisory council as well, and as you can imagine, is a real good mentor to those things, certainly having to do with serving veterans. That's because he serves, I'm happy to say, as the Secretary of the California Department of Veterans Affairs. A gentleman who was appointed by Governor Brown, as the Secretary in 2001. The Major General is retired with more than 40 years service in the U.S. Army and California National Guard. He has been presented with more than 20 awards and decorations, including the Distinguished Medal, Service Medal, and the Legion of Merit. While serving in the National Guard, the Major General simultaneously served more than 22 years with the LAPD. That I didn't know. After leaving the police department, Major General served as president and CEO of Gravett and Associates, a homeland security firm, as well as served as a principal with Trading Global Solution, an emergency preparedness consulting firm. Many of you have seen Major General on campus. He comes occasionally and helps me, certainly, in thinking about how we can help serve veterans better. And he got all gussied up in a tux about 2 weeks ago with his bride, and they were here and were very active participants in our gala. Please welcome the Major General to campus. Kadar has the microphone, so you're going to be first. Is that okay? We again, we've gotten some great speakers here, and one of the ways we do that is we keep it really low maintenance. Okay, they come in from wherever they are, wherever they're working. We don't ask them to prepare a lot. And what we found over the last 2 to 3 years, I should say 3 years, is that that's the best way to handle this, is to give a little time to the audience to ask their questions. But we'll kick it off with Kadar, who's got that microphone in his hand. And just ask each speaker tonight as we kick things off, they've been asked just to identify one leadership experience they think was formative or was formative for them, to share that with you, just to give us all a sense of their background and begin to get a sense of their own personal leadership philosophy. Kadar?
All right, thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. I think this is a great forum, and hopefully everyone enjoys it tonight. In preparing for this question, I thought about the way my life began, and leadership which was thrust upon me even in my family. So growing up in a single parent home, being the youngest, but also being the male, and having been told that I needed to be the leader in the family. That was very formative, and leadership was thrust upon me, and after a little bit of while, I just embraced it. Not just as a duty, but as a joy, and as an obligation to not only my family that needed me to step up where I thought I was not able to, but to my Creator, to God as well, to just do the best that I could in all things. And so that's been the formative experience that's shaped my views on leadership.
So when I saw that question, I was trying to think of when was like a pivotal point in whether my personal life or career that I look back and either regretted or made me a different person. And I couldn't really think of a exact point of like, oh wow, I made a big mistake, I really regret that. It's more looking back and saying, whether it was when I was the president of my fraternity, I mean, God, I made so many mistakes. You're dealing with 150 fraternity guys. And how do you really effectively manage that and grow without getting pissed off at all them and all their parents calling you for all the things that happened? And then transitioning from there into working with my family and dealing with professional business clients and money in real life things. And so I think looking back, it's more of how can you grow from your past choices and what you've done and not make those same mistakes and become a better person moving forward.
Paola?
Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. I'm very honored to be here. So I think my experience is a little bit different from Kadar's. I think it wasn't really until college, when I was a student at Glendale Community College, that somebody actually said, more explicitly that, you should be leading something, or, you have leadership potential. My family came here when I was 10 years old from Chile, and there was a lot of leadership around me all the time, very non-traditional leaders. But growing up, I was a good student in high school, but I wasn't involved in any activities. I had somewhat of a leadership role within my family as well, but I didn't think of it in those terms at the time. But for example, my parents, my father works as a truck driver and my mother works as a nanny, and so even in their occupations, they really excelled at being leaders within their peer networks. My mom, who takes care of children, she has quite the network of nannies who meet very regularly at the park, and they're connecting each other to legal resources and educational resources. And so those are things that at the time I didn't realize were leadership qualities, or that my mom was actually a leader among her nanny friends. So I think I was always exposed to kind of non-traditional leaders, but it wasn't until college when a friend of mine was graduating and said, you should run for president of the Honor Society at Glendale Community College, which I did, and that was really the first experience where somebody said, you should actually do this. And so I think that's pretty common for women in general, to really take a step back until you're identified as a leader and somebody actually says you should go and do this.
Well, somewhat like Paola, my mom was very influential in my development. I'm very blessed to have just a wonderful mom who is a great role model in business and philanthropy and all sorts of different things. And she just in every situation, she looks to form a bond with the person that she's working with, whether it's someone that she's leading or someone that maybe she's negotiating with. And she never takes an adversarial approach. And I've just had the pleasure of watching her through the years work wonders where you would have thought you'd never get past this certain point, and she always seemed to. So felt very blessed in that respect. And now I am doubly blessed in that she is our chairperson, and so I get to work with my mom in a professional way. And so if I ever step out of line, mom's there to put me back in my place.
Peter. Thank you, Dr. Brophy, for having this forum, and thank you for having the insight of having 3 Harvard alumni on the panel up here. So I feel at home with my fellow Harvard alumni. Anyway, I had a very different path to where I am now. I joined the Army at a very young age, and I was an enlisted soldier for a number of years. And I watched the non-commissioned officers over me and the officers over me doing their leadership role, and I thought that I could do better. And so I talked to people, and they said, well, if you think you can better, then maybe you should think about becoming an officer. I never thought about that. And I gave it some thought, so I applied for officer candidate school, and it was accepted. And I went to OCS and was commissioned as second lieutenant. And so I said to myself, now, be careful what you ask for, because you might get it. So I reached back to my roots, to my parents. My parents had 12 children together. It's important to say that. And so my father was a hard worker. My mother was the leader of the family. And so I reached back to what the things I learned from my parents in terms of making sure everyone was taken care of, making sure that everybody had what they needed, and I applied that to the soldiers that I was leading at that time. And so I used that model to actually further my career in the military. So fast forward to that, I went through the ranks and ended up where I am right now as a Major General. But it was grounded with my parents, and then watching other leaders fail and doing the opposite of what they did.
Boy, did you need that microphone. And we'll continue with you, Peter. Is that okay?
Yeah, fine.
Okay. If I'm not mistaken, you grew up in San Pedro.
Yes, I did grow up right down the hill, San Pedro. I live here on the hill right now, but my family has been in the LA Harbor area for 100 years. Our roots are here. I live in Rolling Hills, just right around the corner, about 10 minutes from here. But, you know, I have a strong affection to this part of LA County because this is home for me. And so although I spent a lot of years in the military traveling around the world, served in about 13 or 14 different countries, this has always been home. And it's always nice to come home to some place that they can welcome you.
Absolutely. And my sense is that we're glad you're here. Marymount's very glad you're here. And you serve, you commute to Sacramento, is that correct?
Yes, I serve in the governor's cabinet as one of his cabinet secretaries, and I kind of double from time to time as the governor's chief of staff. His wife is his chief of staff, so he kind of rotates that duty among other cabinet members. But I serve as Secretary of Veterans Affairs for the state of California in the governor's cabinet. So my job is to ensure that the almost 2 million veterans in California are serviced by the state, the federal, and local communities and receive the benefits that they've earned. And California has more veterans than any other state, but unfortunately we also have more homeless veterans than any other state. That's true, because someone once told me that if a veteran chooses to be homeless, they'd rather be homeless in San Diego than in Maine in the winter.
Let me ask you this. You're seated here with a lot of leadership faculty, a lot of leadership students. As you know, everyone has an opinion about leadership, and students often begin their studies with a real good conversation about nature versus nurture. Given your experiences and your point in your career, what are your thoughts about that debate? Whether leadership is wired into your DNA as part of your nature, or is it something that is nurtured?
You know, I'm going to give the attorney answer. It's both. I think leadership can be trained, can be acquired, but I think also that a person has to have something within them to say that I want to do this, I want to be in charge of this, I want to make a difference, I want to identify something that needs to be changed. And so it's both. And of course, if you've had some formal training in leadership, it really helps. And of course, in the military, we spend a lot of time training persons to be leaders. As a matter of fact, an officer who spends a full career in the military, in any service, who spends 20, 25, 30 years in the military, about 1/4 of that time will be in school. It's some type of training program. And so, for example, in my case, after OCS, which is several months, I attended the basic course. The basic course is 4 months. That's after you get commissioned. Then a couple years later, you go to the advanced course, which is 6 months. And then you serve and do some other things. And then along the line, you go to another course, Command and General Staff College, which is a year long. All about leadership.
So that says a lot. So you just spend 1/4 of a leader's time in the services is in training.
It's in training, some kind of training, yes. And most of that's leadership. Yes.
So our students study a lot about leadership succession and leadership development. Eric, you probably have some interesting perspectives on leadership succession and leadership development. Hear from Eric.
My dad's sitting right here, so I gotta be careful what I say. But no, I think it's an interesting thing working with your dad and your family, and by no means am I running the company or have the skill set to run our company right now, and I only graduated, I guess, 2.5 years ago, so it's still all new to me. I'm still making mistakes, still learning every day about whatever it is, and I think taking over a job or a role from somebody who's training you and teaching you the right things to do, that they've made those mistakes before, I think it makes things a lot easier. I'm sure it saves you a lot of money from the mistakes you would have been making. and just a lot of stress that you would have had to deal with otherwise. So I think it's a gifted thing that I could have the opportunity to take over being trained and seeing somebody do it that I fully trust and look up to, rather than just, hey, here's your company, deal with it, or, oh wow, I had a great idea, my company's taking off, I gotta figure it out. So it's more of a plan, phase in, learn this side of the business, learn this side of the business. And so I think it makes things a lot easier on me.
Excellent. Paola, nature versus nurture. We had some early signals from your opening comments, but I mean, you really have spent a lot of time studying leadership. I'm sure in your current job at the Chamber at Harvard. What are your observations on that question? Big question.
Initially, I thought I would get the lawyer answer as well, but I think I'm leaning more towards nurture. I think, there are a lot of students in our education system right now who, are not necessarily being identified as leaders or as people that have leadership potential. And all it takes is one formative experience, one teacher, one counselor to say, you're really smart, you're doing really great, you should consider, taking some type of, or doing some type of leadership activity and really nurturing that young person to develop the leadership skills. I think obviously if that's something that you're more adept to and that's more innate in you, I think you'll have an easier time developing those skills. But I think, for all of the students that we work with, I definitely see leadership potential in them. And I've been really lucky to have a lot of people invest a lot of time in me, a lot of people mentor me and sponsor me so that I could have access to different opportunities. And I think when we do that for other young people, I think we can really help develop them as leaders.
And I was so impressed when I met you, to hear your life story, but to hear more importantly this philosophy. And I think it's amazing, and I don't know if it's unusual, but it's amazing that the Chamber devotes so much energy. Chamber of Commerce devotes this energy to the educational system. We just got a sense of why they might. Could you expound on that a bit? What is a huge chamber, probably one of the 5 biggest in the countries? Why does it invest so much time and energy in this educational element?
So I think the LA Chamber is an outlier in many ways due to the level of investment that they make in education. The Chamber has a staff of about 55, and 23 of those people are working in our education and workforce development division every single day. So throughout the country, that's pretty much the largest investment in education of any chamber. So I think we're pretty lucky to have really visionary leadership who recognizes that in order for companies to have the workforce that they need, to have access to the skills and people that they need, we really have to invest in education to make sure that our students have the opportunity to graduate and to really pursue their interests and be able to really make sure that we're on good economic footing here in Los Angeles.
Really noble work. Grover, you and I are part of international YPO, so we probably spend at least 4 hours a month in forum talking about this topic, right? Leadership. What's your take on this nature versus nurture element?
It's a great question, and I'm also going to take a political approach that feels like it's a little both. And on the nature side of it, I'm having just this great joy the last few years watching my very young daughters grow up. And so you see this little person from a very young age is so stubborn, just like her dad. And I just know that it's all coming back to me. But we have 2 girls, and it's just amazing to see their different personalities and to see how there's all of this research on the firstborn child being that type A personality, and at least in this case, it fits perfectly. She wants to take care of her little sister and such like that. So on the nature side, it's really interesting to see this little experiment, in our house. However, at the same time, there's there's no question a lot of things that I've had the pleasure of going through in my life, a lot of people that I've met that have definitely challenged me and certainly, hopefully, made me more open to trying things that I otherwise wouldn't have. So I will take the political out both.
And Kadar, you've had a great experience. You have, 25 or 30 years ago, if you were anywhere in the world and you said, who is a born leader, they would have said Magic Johnson. He would be in the top 4 or 5 people. And hopefully the newer generation, they would know that as well. But just moving, springing from that experience of working with Magic Johnson and that foundation, what's been your evolving take on this question? Nature versus nurture?
Well, first, working with Mr. Irving Magic Johnson was a tremendous experience for me. Another blessing in my career path. And I learned a lot from just seeing, the dedication to the work, to being consistent, to getting up every day and putting in a great effort. One of the most common questions I received when I was working there was, well, do you ever see him? Right? People, I guess, have a fantasy of his life, and maybe he's out, flying around the world all the time, and he does do that. But he's in the office early, whenever he's in town, every day, on the phone, taking meetings and just trying to make things happen. And so I was really impressed with his level of commitment to the work and using all the resources around him to get things done. And I think when you talk about nature and nurture, in all of us, there's that seed of greatness, and we have to embrace that. And some of that, we all have different potentials and different natural talents, but we can all get better. And that's my philosophy in terms of the staff that I work with and staff that I lead. I ask everyone, and I encourage everyone, and I try to support everyone in being a leader from wherever they are. So you could be the intern, and you're just here for a couple of weeks, or you are one of my colleagues on the senior management team, and we all have to be leaders all throughout the organization, or we won't be able to get the greatest things done possible that we could do.
The invite went out to you folks, and you knew it was an evening devoted to multi-generational leadership. Sorry, Paola, when you got that inquiry, would you come and speak? What were your thoughts? What were we going to talk about if we were talking about multi-generational leadership?
So I have to say, I've been invited to participate in similar panels in the past, but the topic of multi-generational leadership was definitely unique and something very new for me. So I think it's not, prior to coming to this, it's not something that I thought a lot about, but I've been reflecting on it a lot since I received the invitation, and really being more observant about the differences that I see even in our office between some of my younger colleagues, people in different positions, people on our leadership team, and our older colleagues. So I don't know from the rest of the panel, but it wasn't something that I really thought a lot about before coming.
At dinner, we had a chance to kind of talk a little bit about this. I think given your background, Robert, people will be interested in your thoughts on space. And I heard you talk about space and different generations.
We had a very interesting discussion just before we came in, and we're talking about the different expectations that the different generations have. My parents were baby boomers and certainly grew up in a very structured office environment. And when I started my career in the mid-90s, we were also in a very structured environment. So I feel like I sort of bridged the gap between my parents' generation and the millennials. And as we're trying to hire young, creative talent to develop new products and evolve our advertising campaign to reach the younger generation, what we found, it was very interesting. We would bring some great candidates into interview, and they were immediately turned off by our office woman. They literally almost walked in and almost walked right back out the door. There's this expectation now that you want to live and work in an open, collaborative office office environment. And we had not really thought about it, moved into a building that had offices with cubicles in it, and just very different. And as we are looking towards the future, we're building out a big collaborative environment for our purchasing and marketing group so they can work together in a creative space. The interesting thing is they don't want privacy, they want interaction. Whereas it used to be kind of a symbol of status to have your own office. It just seems like they actually don't want that anymore, so very interesting.
That must be interesting, especially because of your specialty.
Yes, exactly, and although we sell all this office, or nice home office furniture, nobody wants it. Everybody wanted the really industrial, it's whole different style, not really necessarily something you want for your home. Wheels on everything, so you can move the tables, move the chairs, and literally we really are working on an office plan that may change from day to day.
Now, you've already been generous enough to share about the 3 generations of your family. What did your mom observe about you when you came to this realization?
Gosh, well, she won when we started talking about how much it was going to be to build this place out. She was just scratching her head going, really? We're going to spend this much to knock everything down and put wheels on tables? It really doesn't seem like, it was interesting. She just didn't immediately understand the concept, but once I was able to get her in one of these spaces, I mean, it's amazing. She immediately, saw it and loved it.
Excellent. Paola?
And so Grover and I had the conversation about the space, and since being invited to this, I was really observing around the office, trying to figure out what some of the differences were. And I think a lot of the differences are around this expectation of privacy. And one of the examples that I noticed was, when I want to see a shared calendar or one of my colleagues' calendars, it seems that some of my older colleagues restrict access, and you can only see, whether or not they're busy. And then some of my younger colleagues, their calendar is wide open, even their personal appointments are listed on their calendar. And so those differences became really, really obvious to me.
Interesting. Very interesting. Eric, your thoughts when you heard this topic?
We have 2 offices in our entire center where everyone's working, and as soon as we hired our first sales guy, I moved out of my office into the pit with everyone else. And
Why? That's a big one, right?
yeah. I mean, my dad looked at me like, "What are you doing?" But I wanted to be out there. It's so much easier to work with somebody when you know them and you're sitting next to them all day, and especially with the sales guy, you're getting beat up on the phone all day, and to have that camaraderie of going back, the guy was a jerk, and back and forth all day, it really helps out the office. And me being out there talking to them all day about personal, about work, that I thought it was crucial for us. I mean, we're a small growing company, and when we moved in our office, we had 3 or 4 people. Now we have 14 or 15, whatever it is. And so I thought it was important to be out there, and I wanted to be out there. I don't want to sit in my office all day.
Any experiences from your leadership, distinguished leadership with your fraternity? Any of those experiences play out?
Yes and no. I mean, it's so vastly different of being the president of your fraternity your senior year. But I mean, with that being said, I moved back. In my fraternity, it was, you rushed your freshman year, then you lived in your sophomore year, and then junior, senior, you kind of faded off. And when nobody else in my year wanted to step up and be president, and I don't want one year to be president, so I did it, and I won. And as soon as I won, I decided I wanted to move back into the house with the younger guys. So I guess I kind of holds true the same. I left all my friends, moved back in with the younger guys to kind of keep the fraternity around. But day to day of managing 150 guys versus managing a small business, vastly different.
Yeah.
They're both fun.
Absolutely. It's not like you enjoy both.
Yeah.
Kadar, Your first thoughts when you got this invitation? We were so honored to accept it, and you agreed to come here. But your first thoughts?
Absolutely, it's my honor to be here. So this topic is really dear to me because in my doctoral program right now, which is the Loyola Marymount University Educational Leadership doctoral program, we are studying the different generations right now. And they gave us, a couple weeks ago, a professor, Dr. McCullough, handed out a chart that had the kind of the upsides and the downsides to each generation. Because right now there's at least 3, maybe sometimes 4 generations working in side by side in organizations, schools, offices throughout the country. And I took that to the senior management team meeting one day, and we all laughed because these are the real challenges that we're dealing with. Different expectations on privacy, different expectations on spacing, on how information is shared and when it's shared and how much, and sometimes you want the open space, but sometimes you need your office to have a confidential conversation. So it's a challenge, and so since none of our organizations are static, we all have to keep moving to be dynamic and to continue to grow. Managing our transitions with these different generations is critical. So I was really excited that we were going to talk about this topic.
Excellent, good time. Major General, you've worked with many generations. What were your thoughts when you received this invitation?
And still do. Actually, it hit a nerve because I work with multi-generation staff members right now. In my agency, and we have offices throughout the state, we have about 3,000 staff members. And we have 8 veteran homes in California that serve older veterans. But in California, I mentioned about having 2 million veterans. The largest preponderance of veterans in California still are the Vietnam era veterans. That's the largest. And the second largest concentration of veterans are World War II and Korea put together. And third are the current veterans, younger veterans that are coming out of the military now. So you see a lot of things in the news about veterans, and we have to understand that the average age of a veteran in California is about 68 years old. So it's not the younger people. So we serve them all. And but in terms of a space and multi-generational in government, state, federal, state government, the space that the workers have is allocated in doctrine. So when you are a new employee or a trainee, you're given a cubicle that has so many square feet, small. And as you get promoted, the cubicle becomes a little bit larger.
Is that right?
And the more you're promoted, the cubicle gets larger and larger. Then when you become a manager, then you get a small office. And then when you get higher than that, you get a larger office. So people are very territorial in terms of their cubicle and space. But these are the older staff members. The younger staff members, like the panelist said, want the open space. I have the good pleasure of knowing a good friend of mine, who has I wasn't going to mention his name, but I'll just say his name. His name is Craig Newmark. He owns Craigslist. He's a personal friend, and his office in San Francisco, when I first went there several years ago, I expected to see a big palatial office with large windows and skyscraper. His office is about the size of this room, and his staff, his whole staff, national staff, fits into this room. And there are no cubicles, there are no walls, it's entirely open, and they have a small conference room off to the side that they can go into if they need to. It's all glass, and so you can see in there, and it has no door. It has a side panel with no door. So his staff, they're all in their 20s, maybe early 30s, and it's an open environment for them. Some of my younger staff would prefer to have an open area and not in a cubicle. They feel confined in a cubicle. I'm old school, but I'm changing. And so I work with both the older set, the middle set, and the younger set in terms of generational, and they're all different.
Excellent. We should heard about nature versus nurture. different generations, our thoughts about our own formative experiences. What was an experience, let's start with Kadar, what was an experience for yourself or that you saw someone else go through in terms of failing as a leader? And what did you take away from that in terms of leadership?
Well, I'll talk about two things here. So the first failure I would describe to myself, and my first failure would be focusing too much on my failures and not enough on the successful things. Well, it could be, did I say that the right word, or did I not say, did I not compliment this person enough? Did I miss something good that someone had done and not recognize that? Or did I not follow up in time with an email? Or, was I not prepared enough for this meeting, which could have gone better? So there's a lot of subtle tearing down that, I used to do, trying to, be the perfect worker every single day. I think what I took away from that experience was to celebrate the successes and build on the successes, recognize the mistakes and move on. Another very formative experience I had was early on in my career where I saw an organization that was growing a little too fast. The best intentions, the best desires in terms of serving the audience, but just too much too soon. And that experience has always stuck with me to be very...
How so?
Well, because growth is our natural inclination, whether you're trying to sell more widgets, more furniture, get more clients for your packaging company, whatever it is, we all want to grow. But if we grow too fast, sometimes that takes the legs out from under us and actually inhibits our ability to actually do what we set out to do in the first place. So I've always thought deeply about how to make sure that in those growth situations, we're doing everything that's going to keep going to keep things moving forward, but never jeopardize the core of the mission.
You were lucky, in a way you were lucky to observe it firsthand. Eric, your thoughts, first, either firsthand or from a distance, a leadership failure that has really made a difference in your own formation?
That's a good question. I mean, for us, kind of on a small scale, growing, we're always looking for the next new hire. And when we need somebody, we really need somebody. We're probably bursting at the seams until we actually hire that person. By design, since we're small and we can't afford to hire somebody bad. And sometimes we do with sales guys. And just being small and not hiring somebody who maybe has the same vision as us. And I think it's key that everybody in our organization has the same vision. Whether they're the most qualified, I don't know if that's saying right. Oh, I don't know whether they're the most qualified person for the job. I think it's almost more important that they share our vision since we're so small and you can't have that one bad apple that's ruining everybody else. And we have hired. We haven't made every great hire, and you gotta move on.
Talent acquisition is difficult.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Paola, your thoughts? Something you've seen firsthand, or maybe through a mentor, a failure that really struck you?
So I think one of the things that I've observed and that really helps inform me as a leader is really the notion of top-down leadership or collaborative leadership. And I think a lot of times when decisions are made that are very top-down and there's no buy-in from the people that it affects, that change doesn't tend to last. Working at LA Unified for the Board of Education, I definitely saw that firsthand. A lot of times when the board was trying to drive different policy changes or, whether it was implementing a new curriculum or changing something on a school site, a lot of times the mentality was, okay, you're a board member, you're here for 8 years, and we're going to do this for the 8 years, but then it's very easy to revert back to where we were previously. So I think one of the key things that I've learned is that in order to make long-lasting change, you really have to engage all of the stakeholders that are affected and get their input and their buy-in so that you really can make long-lasting change.
Grover, your thoughts?
So I want to echo a couple of the great comments that have been made already. The probably biggest failing that I've seen is when we started the company, I was wearing a lot of different hats, and so I really viewed my job as very tactical. So I would literally lay out, here's exactly what we're going to do in all these different situations. And I ran our purchasing department. I was our first store manager, and bought the advertising and everything. And so as we grew, we started, bringing in good talent to fill these positions. And it took me a long time.
In what areas?
In every area, a store manager, a head of purchasing, a head of VP of marketing, and I still had that just because, look, this is my baby, I felt like I could probably make better decisions in all these different aspects than this great talent that we brought in. And after a while, you kind of realize that it's just demoralizing people. If we're going to bring in great talent, you need to entrust them to make decisions, and they might not always be right, but great talent, good people will learn from their past decisions, and if you want to build a team and get that buy-in, you have to entrust the team to run their part of the organization and to work together with other team members to make great decisions.
Major General, the Grover speaking to some of the things we read in leadership literature, the idea that great leaders learn early on that they need to let other leaders fail, and that builds their trust with their group. What's your experience with this word failure and trusting that failure will lead to other good things?
I think if you have subordinates and you entrust them with responsibility and authority, then you need to support them in them carrying out their duties. In the military, every officer, most officers have a staff, and the staff is there for one reason, that is to advise the commander on whatever they need to advise on. And there's no saying is that if a commander has a staff and does not use and respect that staff, the commander is bound to fail. And so, as a senior leader in the military, I had considerable staff, and I would give broad general guidance in planning an operation, for example, and they have guidelines. They go and plan the operation, they come back and they back brief what the plan is, and then I would tweak it a little bit, they go back and fix it a little bit more, but eventually I've got to make a decision on what takes place. And I have to respect what they have come up with because they have some bright minds, and there's more of them than me. And so, based upon their recommendation, then I would make the decision to go forward on that. But it's important to me and to most military officers, and also in civilian and in corporate America, that they have some subordinates that can not be yes people, but tell them what should be done, a recommendation, and then listen to them and support them. Because if you're not going to support your subordinates, and not going to support your staff, then you don't need a staff. If you don't need a staff, you're bound to fail.
Excellent. We have tonight the good fortune to remind ourselves as a university community the importance of presenting role models to our students, and I think we would agree we've done that. We're going to turn in a minute just to some of the audience questions, but I want to also introduce some of the role models who work at the university day in, day out, serving as role models to our students. Professor Tom Mead, please stand. Please stand. Dr. Stephanie Day. Of course, we have Professor Michael Folletta. And let's see. I have one more person to introduce. Is Kosi here? Oh, Kosi is here. Well, the real architect of our graduate programs, and certainly I goes the MBA and leadership program and community psychology program, is one of our university's great Provost, Dr. Ariane Shaw. Before we jump into all these questions, is there one question that you thought you'd like to ask this group?
I think the multi-generational question is fascinating because we're looking at the situation as leaders ourselves and as educators, trying to look at what leadership traits we all have in common across generations. And we're looking for differences so that we can tweak our styles perhaps, but what traits do you find in common across generations?
Pam? As we go forward, we can mix and match, and if you just have one or two responses, that's okay.
I think one of the traits that's really important is just being adaptable and being able to roll with the punches and with changes. I think, for people that are coming into the workplace right now, there are so many changes that we can't even conceive of, right now that are going to be taking place. So making sure that we're always willing to be flexible and adapt, I think it's a really crucial leadership skill. I think, technology is one of the things that has really accelerated how rapidly things are changing. And so, leaders don't look like they looked 25 years ago, because of technology. Now we have, teenagers who are owners of startup companies that are leading enterprises. We have, billionaires in their 20s. So I think leadership is really changing, and so is the workplace. So I think adaptability is really key.
Yeah.
I would say a commitment to the work. I think that's a common thread that I've observed from all the successful people and great team members that I've worked with in my career, is that they are dedicated. So the youngest to the middle age to the oldest are really enthusiastic about the work, and also really enthusiastic about making work an enjoyable experience. So working hard, but making it productive and learning from one another, I think are all still common traits across the generations.
Excellent. Gravett?
This is actually to build on one of Kadar's comments earlier. A lot of what I see is, no matter what generation we're talking about, I think everybody likes to be a part of a growing team, to have an exciting purpose, a shared vision, something that sort of inspires you. And the other thing is certainly to be recognized for good performance. And being to know that your hard work is appreciated. I think that goes without saying.
Excellent. We're going to move into a bit of a lightning round. We have lots of questions that have come forward for specific speakers, and so we'll just launch into those. And unfortunately, the topic is multi-generational leadership. So the first question for you was, what is it like working for your father? This is probably, you didn't put this forward? Pretend your dad didn't put this one forward.
I think it's fun. Long story short, it's fun. All my friends, everyone, how's it working for your dad? My dad's probably harder than any other boss I've ever had, times 10. But it's good. And I've seen his success. He started his company when he was 30, sold it, retired, and I, fortunately or unfortunately, took my retirement to start this company. So,
Is that right?
that's right, yeah. So,
That must have been an interesting dinner.
I was actually home for winter break, and he was kind of getting antsy. He'd been retired for over 10 years. And he was going to see a factory, and we went to the factory, and we wanted to buy a company to kind of get back into something. And I said, no, I don't want to buy it, we should start from scratch. And we blindly did it. I mean, it's been fun. It was way, way harder than I ever predicted.
So our students remember that you go home for Christmas break and you might talk again about starting a business.
Right. No, it's awesome. It's so much fun to be working with them, and you really see the fruit of your labor working with your family, and you're not a cog in the wheel, and you're bouncing ideas off of him, and I mean, we're probably closer than we've ever been before, and I mean, we spent all day together, so it's fun.
I think that's an ah, right? Ah. That is excellent. It wasn't staged. Now, later we'll hear from your brother and see what he thinks. Right? Paola, this has to do with multi-generational, in a sense. What things can we do to help girls realize their leadership potential at an earlier age?
So, I think as I said in my opening comments, I think particularly for girls and young women, it really takes, being identified as a leader before they see themselves as a leader. I think for women that are running for political office, this is something that they always say, I had thought about it, but I wasn't sure until somebody, said you should run and you would do a good job. And so I think one of the things that we can do really early on is make sure that we're communicating these messages to young girls saying, you belong at that table just as much as your other peers, and you should seek out opportunities to become leaders and really help nurture that talent. And I think, adolescence is really crucial in the development of young girls, and that's when a lot of insecurities come into play. And there's a lot of research about, girls stop liking math when they're teenagers because it's not, the cool thing to do. So I think, the earlier we can start telling girls, you're a leader, you have the potential to be a leader, the more they're going to feel comfortable embracing that role.
Nurture. Kadar, this was an insightful question. I came forward. I think you gave a little heads up on the organizations you've worked for. The question is, what does leadership look like in an organization where everyone is a leader or aspiring to be one?
Well, the framework I use to examine leadership and to operate is servant leadership. So I believe that every day the job is about going in and being of service to the audience, in this case students, and to the teams, to the individuals in the organization. So where everyone is acting as a leader, everyone is taking their job and doing it with joy, with vigor, to the best of their abilities. As a leader, wherever you are in the organization, you are being creative. You are looking for opportunities to grow your position and to help the company reach our ultimate mission from wherever you are. So really, you're anticipating what could be done more, what could be done better. You're open to new ideas. You're sharing new ideas. You're taking risks. You're not just waiting for someone to tell you what to do, but you're actively trying to create the ultimate mission of the organization from wherever you are.
To follow on that, our leadership students know, I'm sure at the graduate level, there's now literature on advising millennials on how to manage us, right, their next generation. And then, of course, there's literature to people, in my age group at least, on how to work with millennials. You're at an interesting point in terms of mid-career. What's your observation on this? What truisms are there, or what myths are there about these generations working together?
Well, I think one part of the answer I didn't give earlier was that through the differences and through the humor of it all, and we're so the young this or old that, I think you have to honor the differences in the generations and appreciate them and really try to look at the other person's shoes and see where they're coming from. So that's been my experience. That's why I approach it. I think it's important to mentor younger folks to deal with frustration in a positive way. So if you're not getting the information that you're looking for, or if things are taking too long, or if you don't like your cubicle, have a dialogue about it. Try to open the dialogue, and then at the same time, the older generations or the middle generations just try to understand that eagerness is, let's channel that. Let's try to channel that in the right direction and know that it's for the greater good because this person wants to help get the job done.
Excellent. This idea of appreciating difference and inclusivity. Major General, your thoughts about our generation, folks who've been in their positions 30 or 40 years, what do you find is the most difficult thing maybe for us to appreciate about the millennial generation, that generation that's coming up, and as we heard before from our speakers, is probably working in a different way in the workplace. What's the most difficult thing for us to appreciate? or that we need to work on appreciating?
I think we need to understand and appreciate that a college education does not qualify you to be smart. We need to appreciate young people who don't go to college or don't have a formal education, that they have a role to play, and they are in fact leaders also. I'm not, I'm on a college campus now, so I gotta be careful what I say here, but I always say that every person does not belong on a college campus, but those that do need to go there and receive a formal education. In my agency, I have 7 deputy secretaries, and 4 of them are women. And these women are very, very competent, very smart. They're leaders. They have been trained, schooled, and I think we need to appreciate the role that women play in our society today, because when I first joined the military many years ago, the military is probably about 3% female. And now in the Army at least, it's about 18%. And it grows every year. And so therefore, the veteran population, which I serve directly, is more and more women becoming veterans. And so we have to develop programs and policies to serve women veterans. And the deputy secretaries that I have are on the cutting edge of developing those programs.
Excellent. Eric, your thoughts, we've heard about appreciation and honor. Looking to that generation, the generation that came before you, what's the most important thing or things that your generation needs to appreciate or honor about that generation? Or another way to put it, maybe is what is most difficult to understand, but you know you need to appreciate?
I think we can both learn from each other, my generation versus 40, 50, 60-year-old people. And for example, when we first started our company, we were wearing jeans and a t-shirt to work. And I was super adamant about it. And then, obviously, I wear this to work now. And so I think settling on differences, and whether it's the old school way of doing things versus, hey, we should have a completely open workspace versus wearing suits and ties, and settling on slacks and a t-shirt. And I think even between generations, everybody's super different. People are more resistant to change, less resistant to change. And I think that goes both ways between my generation and older generations. And I can't pinpoint on one thing, but I think it's learning both ways, and a mix of doing business in the modern day.
Paola, your thoughts, and let's get you tough ones to roll into this. What generation are you in? When you think about all the folks you work with, the spectrum of people, where do you think you fit in terms of the generations?
So I think I'm sort of straddling that line between Generation X and millennials, depending on what you're looking at, whether it's Wikipedia or something else. So I think I definitely have some traits of the millennial generation for sure, and I think, I have traits of the older generation as well. So I definitely agree with Kadar and Eric. I think it has to be a two-way exchange, and that there's a lot of room to learn from both generations. Certainly I think millennials get the reputation as being somewhat impatient and wanting to advance fairly quickly in their careers. But I think, the reality is that there's a lot we need to learn before we can really become, the leaders that our bosses currently are. There's a lot of knowledge that has to be passed down, both about, the content of what we do as work, and also how to be a leader as well.
Excellent. And it took courage to identify yourself. It's good. Grover, your thoughts on this question, appreciation, honor, understanding that there's differences and there's room between the different generations. What's your experience with this? What needs to be honored or appreciated between the generations? What have you seen work, I should ask?
Great question. So I think at heart I'm kind of an old soul. Tom Brokaw wrote that great book, The Greatest Generation, and it's just humbling to think back to what the generation that grew up in the Great Depression and had to fight World War II. It it's just humbling to think what they went through, and compared to that, how easy we have it today. So, what I think really helps bridge the gap is putting yourself in, no matter who you're speaking with, put yourself in their shoes. What's important to them, and understand what they appreciate. I think it's really important to honor my parents' generation and the generations before that put us where we are. But at the same time, we got to embrace the future, and because I think the generation that's coming out of college these days, or starting companies in their teens, they are our future, and they are going to keep our competitive edge here in the U.S. That truly is going to set us apart.
Keep the microphone with Grover for a second. Describe an experience you had in developing, coaching, or leading someone much older.
Another great question. Let's see. We've had a number of managers. I guess when I started the business, I was about 30, and so it felt like everybody was older than me at the time. And it was a little awkward at first, but I think what I found is when there's a respect, a mutual respect with the person that you're working with, and you are really just trying to act as a coach and point out where they did some great work and where they have some opportunities. It's just being very candid about their performance, but also having a respect for that person. I think it's all relationships start with having respect for that other person.
Kadar? Someone, certainly a different generation or more advanced in their career.
Sure. I always try to coach. There's a couple elements the way I try to approach it. Number one is being timely. So if something has happened, to address it as soon as possible. Not in a rush sense, but as soon as it's feasible within a day or so. Number two would be to coach from the perspective of the job itself. What actually occurred, how this could negatively affect our work as a team, and how much you care about not only the company's performance and the students involved, in my case, but also the person themselves. So, for example, if someone has not checked, this actually happened today, couldn't find one of our colleagues, and my first concern is this person okay? Has something happened? It's unusual that I haven't heard from this person. Okay, so we've gotten past that point. So the next thing is, this is what would be best for us, in terms of describing the behavior that we're looking for. So I think that timeliness is important. Respecting the other person is important, and framing it in a way that it's all about the work itself and about making sure that person is at their best to get the work done.
Excellent thoughts and insightful, and probably true with almost any human being, individual. Major General, I can imagine you've been in a couple of circumstances, at least, where you had to coach someone older than yourself, or a different stage of life, advanced of yours. How did you approach those experiences?
Well, in the military, when I was commissioned as a second lieutenant, which is the youngest officer, low-ranking officer, after you receive your commission, you are assigned to a platoon. In the Army, at least, and the platoon is about 40 people. And the senior non-commissioned officer in that platoon is generally in his or her late 30s, early 40s, and you are in the early 20s. So, but you walk in, and what they tell you in OCS is that when if you report to your first assignment, respect your platoon sergeant, because that person can teach you a lot and can make you or break you. And so I went in very humble.
Was that true?
Very true. I went in very humble, but yet I was in charge. And so I let my senior NCO know that I was in charge, but I did not know everything. I was looking for his mentorship as an NCO, and that, but I was in charge. And so, matter of fact, most of the individuals in my first unit, first platoon, were older than I was by a few years. And so, if you exercise leadership, they will respect what you don't know and teach you and show you the ropes, and then exercise leadership, they'll follow you, and they follow me.
And in an unguarded moment, or a moment where they could let down the stripes between you and the ranks between you, what did they say to you about what you had done right for the sergeant, for example?
They didn't actually come out and say that, but by their actions and demeanor and comments, you knew that you were doing something right. You knew that you had their respect, because you have to earn the respect, and once you earn it, you have to maintain it. And if you don't earn it, you're not going to get it. And so I think, in my case, I believe that I earned it. And at least I didn't see any indications that I did not earn it. And so it worked out okay for me.
Two final questions, and we'll take our time on this. What advice, Paola, what advice do you have for future leaders? You have a lot of aspiring leaders here. We have a student from Student Government Association. I know here we have students who are in their first year, students who are in their 30s who are in a graduate program, and everything in between. Well, what's your advice to future leaders? These are folks who are studying leadership.
I think it's really all about doing the work and, really dedicating yourself to the work and, making sure that you're doing something that you enjoy doing, that you enjoy learning about, so that you're continually renewed and wanting to do that work. There's actually one of the things I do on my off time that I like to do is Pinterest is my best friend in the world. I do a lot of crafts projects on my spare time. So one of the things I have above my desk at home, and it's a quote that really resonates with me. It says, "The dream is free, the hustle is sold separately." So all of us, want to get to these places where we want to be leaders, but it's not going to happen unless we're willing to create those opportunities for ourselves and really put in the hard work.
Can't fake it.
Can't fake it.
Absolutely. Grover? And folks, I think many students know your businesses, and they're interested in advice that you would give, certainly as an entrepreneur, and certainly other ways as well.
Sure, I guess maybe two pieces of advice. And one, the first is be prepared to take a path that you never expected to. I started out my career in the finance business, went back to business school, and really saw an opportunity in the market based on a store in Houston that there wasn't anything out here. And I'm probably the last person who should be selling furniture. I can hardly dress myself, but it happened to be this opportunity that it felt like landed right in my lap, and really never expected it, and it's worked out to be a wonderful thing. So you never know where life is going to take you, and don't be afraid to embrace a path that you didn't originally expect. And I think the second piece of advice, and I'm sure you guys hear this all the time, is, man, you're going to get knocked down, and you're going to get, there are going to be a lot of setbacks. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, just learn from those setbacks because you're going to experience quite a few of them. And the people that ultimately make a successful business are the ones that overcome those hurdles time and time again.
Here, here. Again, hard work, getting back up. Eric, advice for leaders? I think they're looking at you in a real special way. Someone who dedicated themselves to a very specific field early on, and is in the middle of the pool of people in the work area. I'd like to hear your thoughts. What advice do you give them? You're in a very special place in your career.
I think you always need to be yourself. You couldn't try try to be somebody else for that long, eventually your true self can come out. And kind of embrace that and pull out your positive attributes and what you're good at. Nobody's good at everything, so don't try to fake to be good at everything. Hire the people around you to help support you. And I think for everybody who wants to be an entrepreneur, starting your business sounds great, and I think Robert could 100% agree with me. It's a lonely roller coaster with mostly downs. But I think at the end of the day, it definitely pays off, and it's fun to see how you personally grow as well as how everyone grows around you in the business that grows with you. And you have to be the hardest working person in your office. First one in, last one out. And everybody says that, but you actually have to do it. And I don't know if I'm always the first in my office, but I'm always the last person there, no matter what.
So be yourself, work ethic, be ready if needed to jump at an opportunity, or to identify an opportunity. Kadar, what else can you build on that?
I agree with everything that's been said so far. A couple things. Be people-oriented and be task-oriented. Keep a good balance of that. Don't just try to make friends with everybody and get too involved in extraneous things, conversations, but don't be too task-oriented where all you care about is getting it done, getting the sale, and bulldozing people. You have to have a great balance of that. Additionally, just listen. Listen. You can learn so much from the people around you. Keep reading, keep learning, keep studying. That is crucial. Be a lifelong learner in your craft and a student of people. And lastly, bring your heart to work. Second to last. Bring your heart to work, but not necessarily your emotions, because you have to have a good emotional balance. But you want to, be a person with passion and be a person that cares about the work and about the people. And this is lastly, learn how to renew your spirit, learn how to renew your mind, learn how to renew your physical energies, because if you are the last person in the office, you're going to get tired.
Yeah, and excellent, and we don't say that enough. And I bet the audience is wondering, if you don't mind, how do you do that?
Well, for me, I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. That's my beginning and my end. And so through prayer and faith, that's my renewal. I also spend a lot of time with my family. Time management is one thing we haven't talked about, but be very diligent with managing your time so you have the space to carve out the things that build you up, whether it's a workout, that's also important to me, whether it's make sure you're not eating Doritos for breakfast, have a good diet as much as you can, and just try to get as much sleep as you need.
Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, closes out this question.
Interesting you said that about having time for yourself and eating right and working out and so on and so forth. You have to force myself to do that, to allow time to do that. But time management for me is very, very crucial. I do a lot of traveling throughout the state. I travel a lot, and I don't always manage my schedule myself. My staff does that, but I have final say-so on my travel requirements. But I'm always the first in the office, last one out. And when I'm sitting there in the office and everyone's gone and it's dark outside, I'm thinking, am I doing something wrong? I'm the last one here, And so my wife talks to me about that a lot because she knows when to reach me at 8 o'clock at night to call the office. So it's important to take care of yourself so you can take care of others. And I do that. I manage my walking around. I don't sit in the office a lot. I manage my walking around, talking to staff, asking them, what can I do to make your job better or to help you do your job better? And I'll take notes. It's important for me to know staff, know something about them. I can't know everybody, but for those that I do, I ask the question and see if I can make it a little better for them and make a difference.
Well, we're going to go to a lightning round and close out. We'll pass the microphone to Grover. We live in a time that we think is very fast-paced, and we have many thoughts about this idea of renewal. And so as students leave tonight, do know there's literature about There's research about renewal and the effectiveness of leadership. The last question as we go through, we're going to work up to a place where we close the formal part of the program. Speakers will be available to you certainly afterwards in the reception area. So know you can stay afterwards to meet with them. Closing out, Grover, what did you learn from your peers tonight? What did you learn from your colleagues tonight? We'll just go across the group here.
Sure. It's so interesting. There's, even though we're in a lot of totally different careers, a lot of what we face is so similar. And it really is, I think, I'm going to go back to Kadar again. Heard a lot of great things from you tonight. There's, you have to have that connection with people. It doesn't matter what you do. We're all in a people business, and that really came through tonight, I feel.
I think for me it was similar. All of us come from different backgrounds and are working in different fields, but I think leadership looks very similar across institutions and across different occupations. And so, it was nice for me to hear some of the things that the panelists value, and some of the, I think in particular, around trying to honor the differences between the generations. We all have to work together in order to make our different enterprises work, and so having that respect, I think was one of the mutual things that we shared.
Spot on with both of them. To hear all the commonalities, so many between all of us that do such vastly different things, different ages, even different positions within companies, and all common backbones between the answer range.
The dream is free, but the hustle so separately. I love that. There's so many problems in our world, but being here tonight, it feels really good. It feels like we're in great company. This is a great forum, and there's a lot of hope. So I'm very hopeful after tonight.
You have a final word here? Major General.
I have to say that we would not be sitting here tonight in this forum, at this location, in this space, were it not for veterans. And we should be thankful for the service that veterans have provided this country since before the Civil War, and they continue to provide every day. You don't see the war here in Palos Peninsula, but it touches all of America. And just appreciate veterans, appreciate service people, appreciate what they have done.
Grover, Paola, Eric, Kadar, the Major General. Let's give them a big Merry Christmas. Thank you.